Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app on a Thursday. A Thursday, Anthony Haney. We're almost at the end of the week. We are making it. Has Linnell left your studio and stopped screaming yet?
He is just outside of my studio yelling so I can hear him through the fine glass.
What is he yelling about?
That I don't know, but he's yelling at someone. Yeah,
It can often be hard to tell whether Linnell is yelling at someone or yelling to someone.
Well, yeah, too, probably then.
So he might be yelling to someone, but also at them. He did, for those that were listening 24 hours ago, lodge a formal complaint that the blame for the tuna smell yesterday was solely on Chris Russell, not on he and Chris. In which case, if that is true, then I apologize. It would make sense. Chris is the one who was the nacho spiller. That is now 2 food strikes for Chris Russell in an area where I occupy after him, and I would like for that to not become 3. As for the actual radio show today, we will be talking to Ava Wallace at the top of the hour about the Wizards' win last night, but also the fact that Jordan Poole didn't play in the fourth quarter and kind of where we are with him early on in this season, not really progressing the way that I think the Wizards would have hoped. Certainly that I predicted that he would, but we'll get to that coming up a little bit later in the show. We will also discuss the Commanders, obviously. And normally we start Thursdays listening to a little bit of what Eric Bieniemy has to say, but I was actually more taken by something that Jack Del Rio talked about today. And I am quite impressed. I wouldn't impress, like that's too much, but like I appreciate that Jack just came out and was like, what happened to KJ Henry was ridiculous. And I thought this quote from Del Rio on how he wishes the NFL would look at this stuff was quite apt.
No, I think it's clear. I think the rule's clear. I think anytime the league tries to make an emphasis, then guys tend to come up with calls that are like close to it and wrong. And to me, I would love to just see an emphasis on doing your job, officiating the game so that it's a fair contest. That's what it should be. We don't need to come up with calls to fit a certain window or to fill up a certain window. That's just not, to me, that's not what it should be about. It should just be a fair contest. Make sure it's fair.
I cannot express enough how, on this particular matter, how much I agree with Jack Del Rio. Because, Anthony, when was the last time that they changed a point of emphasis in the NFL and we didn't wind up with a bunch of stupid calls? Or in the NBA, for that matter.
Can't really think of it.
I would say the NBA actually does a better job at this. Because what the NBA does that I think is smart in a lot of respects is they take a look at what is happening that is people manipulating the rules, right? So you have Kevin Durant or James Harden, for instance, being the sweep-through rule where it's like, oh, cool, I raked my arms with the ball into your arms where you were in a defensive position, and now that's a foul on you. And it's stupid. And the reason I think it's extra stupid is that shouldn't be a foul on the defender. If the defender's in legal guarding position and you move into the defender, that's either a no call because you're a dumb offensive player, or if it knocks them off their spot, it's an offensive foul. They were in guarding position. And so what the NBA has done is they've clarified that in the rule. But really what they're doing is just making sure it's there to enforce it in the first place. It's like, no, that's a legal guarding position. Now, if you're reaching, it is a defensive foul. But what they've done is saying, like, hey, you're kind of manipulating the rule. We're not going to make it a shooting foul. But I think, honestly, sometimes that's incorrect. Like, if I go to shoot and you reach, like, it's a foul, sweep through or not. And so, especially when you have guys that, like, sweep through. Kobe was kind of the first guy I remember really doing this, of, like, sweeping through into a shot. Where it was actually like a thing he was doing for offense. And then Durant kind of figured out like, oh, I can do this and get fouls off it and march to the free throw line 25 times a game. And then Harden was like, wait till you see what I can do. But point being, like sometimes you have calls that if they just enforce the rule as it was written, and by the way, within the spirit of the rule, you wouldn't have any issues. And I think that's the problem with the current pass interference. Like, you do want to protect passers. And there are certain plays that don't necessarily look as violent, but that are absolutely injury risks. And you should protect quarterbacks from those things. But you should not go so out of your way in protecting the passer that, like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. This little thing. Like, if you're looking for a call, stop. If the call is there and it's obvious, call it. And so if a guy goes to sack a quarterback and just absolutely, very clearly tries to take his 330-pound body and land on top of the quarterback in a way that's potential or higher potential to cause injury, fine. I have no problem with that flag. Is it football from the 80s? No, but like that's fine. Football in the 80s had more silly injuries in a lot of these scenarios that we're talking about. And they also didn't realize some of the injuries that they had that guys played through, a.k.a. they barely knew what a concussion was. So now we're talking about a time where we're more informed about some of these things. We can do more to prevent them. But in no way, shape, or form is what K.J. Henry did an elevated risk of a foul. And so, and I don't know if we have the other bite, we do, of what Jack told K.J. Henry, but like, good. I'm glad Jack Del Rio did this.
I tell him I hope the league doesn't double down and send you a fine on top of it. That's what I told him. I said, won't surprise me, because they might. They sometimes will do that. But the reality is that was not – it should not have been a flag in the first place, and he should not receive a fine and do exactly what you did, because it was exactly how you should do it.
Everything I've seen from the league is that they are admitting that one was wrong, what I've seen come out so far. And they better not fine him, because what happens is if you fine doing the correct thing because it was called on the field, it just encourages people to not care. It's like, well, shoot, then I'm going to get my money's worth. Next guy, I'm just going to behead him. What's the difference? If the point is to incentivize good behavior and decentivize bad behavior, you better do it. So good for Jack for speaking up today and not being afraid that the NFL was going to fine him. And if the NFL does, then they should be ashamed of themselves. I sincerely hope they do not, because he's just speaking a fairly obvious truth. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We get back, we'll hear from Eric Bieniemy. The question of the week around Ashburn has been, what have the Commanders done to change the fortunes of Sam Howell getting sacked? Sam chimed in. Ron chimed in. Some of the O-linemen have chimed in. Some interesting numbers from some of the reporters who have crunched this stat or that stat. What did Eric Bieniemy say today? We'll get to that next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Anthony Haney, super producer, alongside. Anthony, you came up with a great question, by the way, that we're going to ask people on the phones next. How would you word this question? I'll put you on the spot. It's your question.
I was about to say, let me go to the question. I typed it in the sheet.
I remember what it is. This wasn't meant to be like a pop quiz. I was just setting you up to take credit for the thing that you came up with.
Yeah, it was more so who would you like to see more involved in the offensive game plan for the second half of the season. I mean, we've seen Jahan come along slowly but surely. We've seen, Terry flash here and there. We've seen B-Rob have his performances. Yeah. But I know who I would say, and I know you probably have maybe a slightly different answer. I don't know if you want me to save it or not.
No, let's save it for next. Yeah. But also get the calls in. 301-230-0980 is the phone number, 301-230-0980. I had a realization, Anthony, and this is not going to be good for you. You have a Ron Rivera-esque crutch.
Oh, my words?
Yeah.
What is the phrase?
You say more so a lot. It's more so blah, 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 blah.
Really?
Yeah. And I think it just hit me because Ron, I was like, well, more than anything else, that's his big one.
Uh-huh.
Especially lately. I feel like that one's gotten really bad lately.
And mine is more so.
And you're a more so guy.
I got to be cognizant of that now.
Yeah. I mean, why do you think I told you?
Yeah.
Just got to get you directly straight to the point.
Thank you.
Land the plane. More so than anything else.
More so than anything else, for sure.
That is the Rivera special. God, that drives me insane. Anyway, the point is that we're taking your calls coming up in just a few minutes. 301-230-0980. Which offensive player for the Commanders would you like to see more involved in the second half of the season? The guy who ultimately gets to make that call is Eric Bieniemy. And he was asked today the question of the week, if you will, out in Ashburn, which is, what has been done the last couple of weeks to reduce the number of sacks for Sam Howell?
And then line coaches. On top of that, just making sure that everybody's on the same page. I talked about it before. We got to continue making sure that we're doing a great job of over-communicating and getting the proper message communicated to our players. I think our players have done a heck of a job of protecting the quarterback, and the quarterback has done a great job of getting rid of the football. So right now, I think we're in a good place. Now we just got to continue moving forward.
Take command, tease alert. Take command, tease alert. We're going to talk about this in the opening segment of Take Command, which comes out tomorrow morning. And I know this because we taped it earlier this morning. And all the things that Eric Bieniemy said are true. But what EB is not admitting there, for a variety of reasons. One, I think first and foremost, he doesn't want to be like, well, it's because I'm doing a better job. That would mean you have to admit he didn't do as good of a job earlier in the year. And also, like, you don't want to pat yourself. Hey, what's the number one thing going on with your team? How's that getting better? It's me. I did better. It's pat myself on the back. That's not really EB or most people's style. But the reality is, like, they have done a better job play calling, and it is a sheer numbers game. Like, the number one reason why Sam Howell has not taken as many sacks the last few weeks is math. If you drop someone back, 85% of the game, and you take that number down to 65%, or actually more realistically, let's say you drop someone back, it was 65-ish%. That probably is actually close to a real number. I don't know what the real number is, but like they were passing at 70%, and it felt like 90% of those were dropbacks, like 5-step ball is supposed to be out, right? And you change that number to it's now 7 or 60% drop back instead of 90%, and that so you add in the run plays, and your total output is now 45% drop back instead of 65, right, or 50% or whatever it is. There's just less opportunities for players to get pressures and players to get sacks. Because realistically, while everyone wants to give credit to Tyler Larson and Chris Paul and the substitution and the O-line gelling together, the pressure percentage hasn't dropped that much. it was about 39%. Sam Fortier wrote an article that had these numbers, courtesy of True Media, and Sam looked them up and wrote about it in the Washington Post. But weeks 1 through 7, it was 39%. The last couple of weeks, you're still well over 30. I think it was 32 and 35. And like a 4 to 7% drop off is significant. But if you drop 4 to 7% and also reduce the number, so like you're a 4 to 7% improvement, but you reduce the number of opportunities by 20%, well, now you've done some serious limiting of your sacks, and that's why you give up 1 and then 3 the last couple of weeks. Because the checkers level is the math. The chess level is, as a play caller, Eric Bieniemy has eliminated those opportunities and has broken the rhythm of the pass rushers who are trying to get after his quarterback. Like, it's just harder when you have to account for, oh my God, I might have to go cover a screen. Hey, I might need to short rush this and get my hands up because it's a 3-step drop. And I don't get to read the tackle or the guard or the center, whoever I'm pass rushing against, quite as easily because they're not doing the same thing every play. And so there is a chess game that is being played here that the primary mover is Eric Bieniemy. I think you then add in the fact that you have different personnel that is performing slightly better. Tyler Larsen has been slightly better than Nick Gates. Chris Paul, as a pass protector, has been slightly better than Sadiq Charles. Sam Howell has had his best 2 weeks moving within the pocket and is, as he's getting more experienced, understanding the timing and rhythm of this system, where the ball needs to go. And they're mixing up those play calls. And the result is those numbers come down drastically. So I think it's interesting to hear EB talk about this and to hear everyone and then to talk to Logan about it and kind of do the analysis. And everyone thinks like, oh, the offensive line is playing so much better. No, the offensive line is being put in a position to succeed. Some of the metrics that measure offensive line play specifically have slightly to marginally improved, and the results, thanks to a lot of factors, have improved dramatically, which isn't a bad thing. It's still a good thing. And I made sure to make this point on Take Command as well when we recorded it earlier today. That doesn't mean that all of a sudden the offensive line is A-okay. This is not me saying like, oh, their offensive line of the future. It's the offensive line of right now. Hopefully Tyler Larsen can play till he's 40. Hopefully that, Andrew Wiley is the right tackle here for the next 5 years. Charles Leno, hope he can play till he's 40. No. They should upgrade this offensive line in the offseason because it is average to playing, maybe even if you look at some of the metrics around the NFL, slightly above average. And if they can get it to playing great, then you might have one of the best offenses in the league. And that is worth a lot. And this quarterback specifically, if unlocked with a good offensive line to take away his biggest weakness, which is he holds the ball too long, can perform at a really high level. Because, by the way, Jalen Hurts has the same exact fatal flaw. It's just he plays behind the best offensive line in football, and so he can hold the ball forever. The fact that Jalen Hurts is like 3.5 seconds to throw per drop back doesn't matter because the Eagles' offensive line can protect that. And they run the football really effectively, so they keep teams off balance. And they use the screen game effectively, so they keep teams off balance. So it's a combination of excellence up front, play calling, and balance that unlocks Jalen Hurts to play at an MVP caliber level last year. And even though he's fallen off a bit this year in terms of his performance, he's still really damn good. And so Sam Howell, with this propensity to make big-time throws and do the types of things that he can do, if you take away the risk of some of the sacks, like, whew, it feels like he could be pretty good. So why not do that? But that's an off-season problem. In season, they've done a good job of getting this thing turned around. All right, still to come here on the Hoffman Show. We are going to talk some Wizards today. Ava Wallace is going to join us coming up at 5 o'clock. Good news, they won last night. Bad news, Jordan Poole doesn't look good at all so far for the Wizards. Is there concern within the Wizards organization about that? Ava will tell us coming up at 5 p.m. Also, later on in the show, Ava's colleague, the Washington Post, our good friend Nikki Javala, wrote a very interesting article with some pretty interesting numbers, statistics about the Commanders' offense, key stats to know. I think it tells a pretty good story. We'll run through the numbers and give our interpretation of what that means a little bit later in the show. But coming up next here on the Team 980, the free Odyssey app, and streaming live on YouTube, we will take your calls, 301-230-0980, answering this question. Which Commanders playmaker would you like to see more involved in the second half of the season? Your call's next on the Ace Law listener line. free Odyssey app. Hope you're enjoying your Thursday evening. I can tell if you're watching on YouTube, you see I'm in the home studio today. But Anthony, I can already tell like it's dark outside.
It's
So
raining
weird.
outside.
Oh, is it raining outside?
Yeah, I mean, I see the ground wet unless my eyes are deceiving me.
I mean, I could go step out on my balcony real quick and look. It does say expect rain in the next hour. I love how it's like, hey, is it raining right now? I don't know. Instead of looking out a window, let me check my phone.
I mean, yeah, you're also not too far from me, so
Yeah.
it should be coming soon, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, all my shades are closed because
Oh,
I got to
that too.
control the lighting in here, so I can't actually see outside.
Ah,
That's the problem. But I can, like, tell it's dark.
yeah, it
And
definitely
it's
is.
4:30. That's
Yep.
that's what time of year we're in. We're in dark season. Not my favorite.
Nope.
Not my favorite at all. So here's the question we're asking on the phones, 301-230-0980. Which Washington Commander would you like to see more involved in the second half of the season? Talking offensive playmakers here. Like, I think we'd all love to see defensively a little bit more Deron Payne, a little bit more John Allen, but I don't know that we're going to ultimately get that. And it's not the kind of thing that you can have your coordinator draw up stuff for to an extent. Well, I guess you can to an extent. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. We're not doing defense. We're doing offense. Which offensive playmaker would you like to see involved more in the second half of the season? 301-230-0980 is the phone number. So, Anthony, what is your answer to this question?
My answer is Antonio Gibson, and I say that a little cautiously just because I feel as though when he's in a reduced role, he typically, produces a little bit more, with what
His
reps
efficiency
he
is
gets.
higher?
Yeah, his efficiency is higher. But, when he gets, more of a workload, then, a fumble might occur or, something. There's always, some type of, setback where, we have to reduce his role again. And it's more so I just want to see him be consistent, to be honest. And last week, he ran the ball a little bit more. We gave him 6 rushing attempts. And then also he caught the ball out of the backfield some as well. He caught a couple of screens. So that was all good for the offense. And, when he had the ball, he was pretty productive with it. So that's who I would love to see. I would just more so want to see him be consistent. And I said more so again.
You sure did. You 100% just did. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. I think Gibson is a very good candidate here and was probably the first guy, or I should say the second guy that came to mind for me. I think Gibson needs to be, it's funny because it's which you want to see more in the second half of the season. Well, I'd like to see the Antonio Gibson I saw the very last game. So most of the first half, you didn't see it. But 11 touches is the right number for him. Not exactly, but give me the 10 to 15 range. Even the 8 to 12 range, I'm pretty happy with for him. Where it's actually, I might even like 8 to 12 better than I do 10 to 15. Because I want to see him have those 12, or let's say 6 to 8 rushes, and then give me 6 to 7 targets. And those can sway based off game plan because a lot of his targets are extension of the running game. But I want him involved in the screen game. I want to find ways to get him the ball in a quick slant. I would like to take a shot with him every other week, if not every week, where you get him matched up man-to-man on a linebacker out in space. And some weeks it's going to be a shot play. Can you just get a straight-up go ball, or can you get a wheel route? Find ways to get him in fun. I don't know. I love doing this stuff where it's just let me throw out a crazy idea. But, I would line him up on the wing, an off-the-ball tight end, and, I would motion him down there out of an empty set, and it's a race on a wheel route. I'm going to run you through a couple of pick routes and see if a linebacker can navigate the traffic and get over the top. I would love to see that. Kind of a tight end wheel play, but with Gibson. Figure out ways to get him the football that are unique and use his receiver background and comfortability and space to generate big plays. Because we did see a couple weeks ago him have a big play down the sideline and shows you he can make those contested catches. So I really like Gibson as an answer there. Let's see. Do I want to give my answer? We have a call, right? I got to pull up the call sheet here.
Yeah, we got one.
All right. Anthony, you just tell me who the call is because
We got my man Marcus.
All right, Marcus, who do you want to see in the back half of the season?
I'm going to either go Curtis Samuel or Rodriguez Jr. The reason why I say Rodriguez Jr. because it was one game where he showed flashes of like a strong running back that can really get us good positive yardage when we need it. And the other reason why I say Curtis Samuel, because last year Curtis Samuel was a workhorse. He picked up a nice little workload. He had little key plays in where he came out the backfield and he exploded. You know what I'm saying? He did his thing for a couple. But those are the main two that I would like to see, because I would like to see Terry McLaurin and Dotson just get a little bit of pressure off them so it can go to Curtis Samuel.
All right. I appreciate the call, Marcus. Thank you. Marcus 230-0980, 301-230-0980. If you're in a wreck, Ace Law helps you get a check. Call 8888 Ace Law. I actually like where Curtis Samuel's at for most of the first half. Early in the season, I mean, if you want to take like the first 3 games, not enough. He had 5 targets, 3 targets, 4 targets, and he had 1 rush in 2 of those 3 games. But since then, and he got hurt against Philly, so we're going to have to an extent, ignore that number. But he had 8 targets in the overtime loss to Philly, 7 against Chicago, 4 against Atlanta, 8 against New York, and then 4 again in the loss to Philly. But again, he left that game early, and he was on track for something closer to 7 or 8. He hasn't gotten a carry in a while. He's got 1 against Atlanta and then 1 in the first game against Philly. But I kind of like that, right? Like, I want Curtis in the 6 to 8 targets, 1 to 2 carries range. I love the Rodriguez call. I would like to see Chris Rodriguez more. And I think it's good that Brian Robinson has made it so it's not as easy to put Curtis or to take him off the field and to have Chris Rodriguez out there. But you got to find ways to get some of your better players the ball. And as a pure running back, like, Chris Rodriguez might be the best guy they have to like put in the dot and hand the ball to. So it's tough, but like, I also wouldn't be afraid on run plays, especially to like put multiple backs out there, like play with your numbers, play with the personnel. This is something that I think that they've done a better job of the last couple of weeks, but are there ways to use formations and funky personnel groupings to get to put defenses in a bind? And, you can also use run plays as a bit of a test case, right? Like, put Rodriguez and Gibson out there together, or Robinson and Gibson, one of those two and Gibson. Have Antonio just flank out, see what the defense does, see how they react. Do they treat him as a receiver? Okay, well, then we're probably not going to come back to it on a pass. Can we pull a linebacker out of the box because they're going to go play man-to-man? 1, that's better for our run game. 2, that tells us we can probably go back to that in a pass matchup later. So, like, there's things you can do to try to test that stuff. The problem is then if there's 5 eligible positions on the field, receivers, tight ends, backs, do you really want to use 2 of them on running backs and take John Dotson or Terry McLaurin off the field, or Curtis Samuel off the field, or Logan Thomas off the field? So these are the tough balancing acts that an offensive coordinator has to play. But at the end of the day, like, I think it's worth on occasion playing those games and seeing what happens.
But I think last year, like, we saw a decent amount of like 2-back sets. Granted, it was, different OC, but
did we though?
I mean, to an extent, I know a lot of media members always ask about, having a 2-back set, going 2-back formations just because
they did it some. I guess there was some stuff out of the gun that they did with the back on either side.
Yeah, I mean, that's more so what I was thinking about, but I don't think, the media has made much of a, thing out of, a lot of the 2-back sets.
Yeah. Have you seen some of the stuff that Waldron does, by the way, in Seattle?
Nah, haven't.
Bro, I was watching Colt McCoy's show, Scheme, because
Yeah.
I was kind of floating through some stuff on YouTube earlier this morning, preparing for the show and preparing for Seahawks, and I was like, oh, Colt did a breakdown of Shane Waldron. They do some good stuff with motion. They do some good stuff with formations, personnel. But they also have this one formation they've used in almost every game this year for like 1 or 2 plays where they put 2 tight ends in the backfield on one side of the, like Geno's and Gunn.
Yeah.
2 tight ends on one side of him, and then Kenneth Walker on the other. And then they run this like yo-yo motion. So it's like, let's say Walker's on the right. He'll run like 5 steps right, and then it's like you pull the string on a yo-yo, and he comes back left towards the tight ends. And they've run, like they'll just hand it to him. Ooh. They'll fake it, run a keeper. They'll have him run out into the space and throw a screen pass. They'll have him go the other way and leak out. Like there's all kinds of stuff that they do off this action where it's like, oh, wow, they run this like once or twice a game, and they run something different every single week. And it just screws with the defense. And sometimes, like, normally they just run it once, and it's kind of early. But there's been a couple weeks where it's like, oh, okay, now we know how you're going to react, and they go back to it late in, like, a key situation in the fourth quarter.
Oh, wow.
That's good coordinating.
Yeah.
And coordinators do that all the time. It's just not as obvious because it's not this weird formation that no one else uses in the entire history of the sport. But that's the kind of stuff that you do is like, okay, if we challenge you this way, how are you going to respond? Because you're probably not going to have a perfect solution. Or if you have a good solution to the play that we ran, that means there's probably an opportunity somewhere else. Like, oh, okay, you're going to follow our back out of the backfield with a linebacker? Sweet. Now we know we have a back on a linebacker, and if that back is Antonio Gibson, he's a good route runner, like that's beneficial to us. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. We'll take a couple more calls next on this topic, and I'll give you my answer as well. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. The Ace Law listener line is open, 301-230-0980. If you're in a wreck, Ace Law helps you get a check. Call 8888 Ace Law. So the question that Anthony proposed, which I like, as we call it around here, Anthony, good producing.
Thank you, sir.
Who is the Washington Commanders skill player that you would like to see get more touches in the 2023 second half of the season? Curtis Samuel, a popular one on the phones. Looking for some other answers at 301-230-0980. You also said Antonio Gibson, who's probably would have been my second choice. But my first choice, Anthony, is actually the guy who probably touches the football more than anyone else. I know it doesn't feel like that at times, which is why I would like to see it happen more, but it's Terry McLaurin.
Okay.
I feel like Terry disappears in games too often, and then he very loudly appears, and you're like, right, he's awesome. Terry this year, let's pull up the numbers. Terry McLaurin. He is the leading receiver on the team, leads them in targets, leads them in everything, yards. I think at this point, a couple other guys have more touchdowns, but you're talking about 47 receptions, 71 yards, 47 receptions and 71 targets, 568 yards, 2 touchdowns. Obviously, the 2 pretty memorable ones, the one against Philly, and then the one against Denver, which was just ridiculous. But they've played, 9 games?
Yep, 9 games.
So we want 9 divided by 17 is that. So it's roughly 53% of the season. So he's on pace for just under 100 catches and basically 1,000 yards. And the 100 catches is kind of where I thought he would be. But I thought he'd be up around 1,300 yards. And I think they can get him more yardage by getting him the ball more and more strategically and letting him do some of the things he's great at. Because in some of these games, it's 5 receptions on 12 targets. Well, what are those 12 targets actually looking like? 6 receptions on 11 targets. Let's get the ball in his hands more. And I think they've done a relatively better job the last couple of weeks. Philly did a pretty good job on him. But you look at 3 of the last 4 games, he's over 70. Right, he's got 81 against Atlanta, 90 against New York. Obviously, that game was an offensive disaster, but Terry still had 6 catches for 90 yards. And then in the win over New England, he's got 5 catches for 73. But he averages 14.6 a carry, or 14.6 a catch. So how do you get him the ball? And this to me is the biggest question. How do you get Terry McLaurin the ball either on shots or on the move? Because he is a guy that almost always seems to not get tackled by the first guy. And so it's one thing to throw him a hitch. And in certain situations, sure, fine. I'm okay with the hitch. And, you think back to some of the opportunities he had against Philadelphia, the 4th down that he missed, coming back to the football. It's a miscommunication between him and Sam. Another time where he buttons up and that's not it's not what he's best at. And not just that he will occasionally have some more of the drops, it seems like there, but where he's truly at his best is when he can get on his horse, running horizontal across the field or vertical to get under a ball, catch it, and keep going. And I would like to see them generate more opportunities for that. And I think the screen game, by the way, even though he's not the smoothest screen catcher, is a good way to do that as well. Let's get the ball in his hands and let him cook with some blockers out in front, because I think he's a good carrier of the football. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. That is the Ace Law listener line, 301-230-0980. If you're in a wreck, Ace Law helps you get a check. So give him a call today at 8888 Ace Law. All right, let's see who we got. We got Terrell in Baltimore. Terrell, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Yeah, man. Greg, so look, I don't subscribe to having it all down as far as who plays what position. So I know, like, Curtis sometimes is probably the slot and things of that nature, but the guy I'm talking about is like a Jamison Crowder. Somebody that's like an Edelman type of positions in between the hashes, man, like just running those routes across the middle and not like tricky plays. I know like Curtis kind of runs trick plays and routes and things of that nature, but I feel like if it's not Crowder, maybe it's, I don't know, Pringle. I kind of think of Curtis as like a 2. But you know what I mean? Like just that small, shifty wide receiver across the middle, not afraid for the slant routes. I don't see enough slant routes to bail Sam out. And I think if somebody could just really hone that, I would love to add in the tight ends, but I know they need to be back there for protection. Even if they put Gibson in that type of route, shallow crosses, slants in that middle, I think that would really help Sam and he would bail him out. So that's where I'm going with it. But I think now that we've gotten Crowder, I think he would be great for that.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and it's a good call. It's a good thought. I do think they've done a better job of that the last 2 weeks, and that's part of what I was talking about to start the show, or at 4:15, with like the protection getting better, quote unquote. The protection actually isn't that much better. They've just taken 10 to 15 plays and made them quick game or screens or run the ball a little bit more or changed formation so that you have better angles to block. Like there's just a bunch of stuff happening that is better for Sam to get the ball out of his hands. And guys like Crowder become really important in that. I think you're right that like Curtis is a good slot receiver in a lot of respects, but he's actually probably better suited as a pure receiver on the outside. Dotson actually has a skill set that translates pretty well to the slot often. I mean, Terry can run some of that stuff from the slot. But Jamison is like a true slot guy. And there's just something about having that feel. And Jamison played a little quarterback in high school, if I'm remembering. And some of the best slot receivers have that background because they just understand the timing and kind of the pockets of space at a higher level. And I would like to see, now that they've gotten him involved some, when Curtis comes back, and it looks like Curtis will be back this week with the toe injury, I would like to see Jamison stay involved in the offense because I think there's a good connection between he and Sam. He's a veteran who knows how to manipulate space, and that is a really valuable thing against basically any defense. But this defense that you're going to face against Seattle, certainly one of them. They play a lot of zone, a lot of cover 3. That's been their thing going back to the Legion of Boom days. Pete Carroll's shape-shifted a bit over the years. They play a little bit more, or I would say a lot more because they used to play none. Cover 2 structures now, but it's a pretty zone-heavy team. So can your receivers show the savvy that you need to hook up in zones, get and find the space, and then turn up field and make plays for Sam Howell? We shall see this weekend. That's good. That's good producing, Anthony. That's a good job out of you. That's an excellent question there. Who would you like to see more? We got a little bit of everyone. I would say the one guy we didn't get is Dotson, which I think is interesting. That's probably because the last couple of weeks he has gotten more involved, and he's got to catch the football, and he'll be more involved just by completing the stuff that's already being thrown his way. When we get back, shift gears to the Zardos. Washington Wizards get a big win last night. They've now got 2 of them on the season. They got Charlotte again on Friday, so that's cool. Tomorrow. That's part of the in-season tournament. We'll be out there at Capital One Arena. But it comes in a game where Jordan Poole does not play in the fourth quarter. What's up with that? I'll ask Ava Wallace of the Washington Post next. It's the Hoffman Show, hour number 2 on this Thursday on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Our NFL tiers coming up at 5:30. Also, Anthony, I have a fun thing that I put on Twitter last night that I forgot about, but I think we can talk about it next. And you're a great person to talk to. Kevin Clark, who used to work for The Ringer, and now works for Omaha Productions, Peyton Manning's company. He does stuff with ESPN and blah, blah, blah. He's like, the NBA's in-season tournament, like what should make it special is not different uniforms, different courts. What would be sick is if they played games in the cities in different venues.
Yep.
So like, so I put out, on Twitter, like, all right, DC, where would you want to see the Wizards play if they played somewhere besides Capital One for the NBA in-season tournament? So Anthony, put your thinking cap on. You know this city and the hoop scene as well as anybody. So we'll talk about that coming up at 5:15. But first, let's talk about the team itself with a good friend of ours. Our pleasure to welcome her back to the show.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in. Not my beat.
Ava Wallace.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in. Not my beat.
Ava Wallace joins us from the Washington Post, covers the Wizards, of course, covered the win last night down in Charlotte. And Ava, hooray, they won. That's excellent. What were they, besides playing a team that's also not very good, what were they able to do last night from the process standpoint? What are Dawkins and Winger sitting around the office today going all right, we put that together better than we had in some of these previous games?
Yeah, the bench finally showed up, which is huge. They were fully healthy for the first time this season, meaning they had Landry Shamet. They had Corey Kispert back from that little left ankle sprain that he had earlier this week, or at the end of last week. I can't remember. It's been a 9-day road trip. And the bench was really, really flowing better than it had been all year. It's only been 6 games, but all year. And part of that was Charlotte wasn't very good on defense, didn't give them too much resistance, but it was really nice. DeLon Wright had 18 points, I think. Corey Kispert, 18 points. Landry Shamet, 15 points. Their three-pointers were working, which is exactly how they beat the Memphis Grizzlies at home, their other win this season. So they kind of have a formula going. And yeah, the bench looks great. And then Kyle Kuzma had 33 points. It was plenty for the Hornets.
Yeah. So I'm curious, for you, because I'm in a weird spot talking about this team because we all know, right? It's not a weird spot. It's just the analysis is what it is. We know they're not good. We know the priority is not winning games right now. But if you listen to kind of how they're evaluating internally, I always try to hold people to kind of their own standard. So how are you thinking about this is super big picture, but covering this team this year as they're looking at quarter by quarter type of metrics and can we do the thing we did well for 8 minutes for 12 and then 12 minutes to 24? How does that affect how you're actually viewing the game so far? What are we, 7 games into it?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. Kind of the thing I've been struggling with is what am I going to do? Beat up on a team that doesn't have a roster built to play good defense for 82 games a year? No, that's not the expectation. So, I've been kind of trying to focus on a lot of things is the effort there where you want it to do? Are the things that Wes Unseld Jr. is asking them to do that are doable? Are you at least trying and, trying your best? There was a tweet the other night when they were getting just absolutely flattened in Philly. That was the Wizards are trying their best. And, some nights against teams like that where Joel Embiid went off for almost 50, it's there's not much they're going to be able to do. So in that case, I kind of lean on Wes Unseld Jr. and look at kind of, were 3/4 of that game actually pretty good, and it was just the one that got away from them. It has to be very kind of pick and choose because they are at the beginning, the absolute very dawn of a rebuild. But it's kind of weird. It's honestly in a weird spot with this team where they're actually not that young. They have some young players, but they've got a lot of veterans. Landry Shamet's been around the league. DeLon Wright is a veteran. Corey Kispert and Dede Avdija have been here for a while now. there should be things that they know how to do. It's just kind of, you have to keep in mind, okay, how many actual defenders and actual defensive-minded players are on this roster? How many are in each lineup that Wes Unseld Jr. has to work in? And then I have to kind of break it down and work within those expectations and really kind of stick in reality. But yeah, this team is like an anti-hot take team.
Right. Well, and that's the thing too, is you mentioned some of the veterans, like they haven't even started the young part of the rebuild process yet. Like their goal, it seems right now, is to acquire players who other teams would be interested in, like contenders that would give them pieces.
Exactly.
And it wasn't a team, it was a team that was built to be sold for parts, not a team that was built to actually fit together. And I think you see that night to night. Like their starting backcourt's probably the best example. Like no team that's trying to win is putting Tyus Jones and Jordan Poole together. They're just too small. And you see the detriments of that on a near nightly basis.
For sure. And Tyus is somebody who's like, okay, well, how do I evaluate him when you're talking about he's a really, really smart, really solid point guard who kind of always makes the right plays. But what is his actual job? Is it to kind of keep the offense flowing and keep everybody organized? Yes, much more than it is to go out and score, more than 10 points a night. So it's kind of, it's very interesting, but I don't think it's just weird to write about a team where I don't know that there's any guarantee that any single player, maybe Bilal, maybe Jordan Poole, are on this roster next year. So you're kind of trying to just figure out, okay, well, let me just look at the most granular things of like what's happening this night. It's very like the team is big picture oriented, but to cover them, you kind of can't be.
Right. Ava Wallace with us from the Washington Post here on the Hoffman Show, Wizards beat reporter. So that brings us to Jordan, who plays 20 minutes last night, none in the fourth quarter. And like the kind of scary thing is he's right on track shooting wise. Like all of his numbers are basically exactly what they were in Golden State. Obviously they thought, and to be frank, like I thought they would improve this year. Why haven't they? Like what is the cause for, or the level of concern internally from what you've been able to gather? And two, like why is this happening?
Yeah, I was looking at the same last night when Jordan Poole, he kind of just disappears when he's quiet. It's not even like he's having such a bad game that you notice, and then he'll disappear, and then I'll look at the stat sheet and I'm like, whoa, over 7 in the first half. Like, yo. He ended with 11, and he's kind of had a couple of spurts where he's had 25 plus point games, but really it's just been kind of like it's if he was a sixth man, if he was coming off the bench, even if he was the fifth guy in the starting lineup, you would say, oh, that's not terrible. He's shooting about 43% per game. That's pretty on par for what he is. But obviously in that bigger role, they have to expect more of him. And they do expect more of him from the leadership role kind of on and off court. And Kyle Kuzma's kind of growing into that. And of course he's had a couple of seasons in DC to get used to that role. But growing into that much faster. So there's not, only 6 games in, there's definitely not a huge level of concern yet. And the front office does really like him. They think that what he did in the 21-22 playoffs, I think it was, they really believe that that's who he is. So there is a lot of belief in this guy, and definitely it's too early to be ringing any alarm bells, but it's absolutely something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it's just wild that it's like literally the same guy. And you're like, well, why is it happening? Because that's who he is. And it's like, well, he's got so much more freedom now. And I think a lot of people thought like he might be up in the top 5, 6 in the NBA in scoring this year. And he's just not. I also wonder in terms of like him and Tyus, like we mentioned earlier, how much of what Wes is doing lineup rotation wise. And again, it's so early. Like you do want to give it, if you're Wes, probably at least 10 games, if not closer to 20. But like, is there a point down the line where you say like, this is untenable the way we're doing things right now? Like let's pair Jordan with DeLon because he's a better defender. And that gets Tyus with a guy like Johnny Davis or Landry Shamet, who's stronger on the second unit. Like how much of that kind of stuff are they considering versus, hey, we need to feature the guys that hopefully we sell off in December, January, or at the latest February at the trade deadline?
Yeah, right now I think Wes Unseld Jr. is like very open to things like that. And that is the freedom you get with a roster that's just starting out and rebuilding and at the beginning of a process. Is there's no reason not to experiment with things. There's no reason not to throw Bilal Coulibaly out there. There's no reason not to mess with the starting lineup. So like you said, I don't think anyone's going to be making changes after 6 games in, or at least I would be very, very surprised if they come out on Friday night and make a lineup change. But, we asked him after Philly about defensive scheme changes and things like that. And he said, yeah, there's absolutely things we're considering. We're just taking a look at it. And that's kind of the perk of being a rebuild is you do get to fuss around and kind of experiment and see what goes where better. But one thing is clear, is that they trust Jordan Poole still. And I've asked Wes Unseld Jr., it's not like there's a shortage of kind of wild shots or funny highlights of Jordan Poole early this season. And I say, where's the balance between, you keep saying he's got a green light, but, when he does things like the no-look three in front of Memphis's bench or the kind of floater up against Kristaps Porzingis in that Boston game, that was an air ball. Where's the balance with that? And he says he knows what he's doing. We have to trust him and let him figure it out, but he knows where the good balance between wild shots and good shots are. So there's definitely a trust factor there already.
Ava Wallace, Washington Post, with us here on the Hoffman Show today for Not My Beat. So the main purpose of this season, beyond some of the stuff that we talked about, kind of making sure that the right pieces are playing well so that you can get maximum value in return for them, is the development of Bilal Coulibaly. What have you seen from him through 6 games, and what do you make of kind of how they're deploying him so far earlier in the season?
Yeah, he's been really fun to watch actually earlier this season. There are a couple of guys who are definitely standing out. Denny Avdia, who of course just signed that his second contract with the Wizards, has actually been playing really, really solidly. But for Bilal, I really like his fearlessness, and it's kind of like watching a freshman on a college team where they don't know what they don't know, so they're not scared or anything like that. It's very much those vibes of Bilal will just go out kind of. He's so long, he'll just stick his hands in plays and kind of disrupt things or get a block or get a steal. He's got great timing. It's fun to watch him in a couple plays every game, and it's like, oh yeah, there's something there. Or like, oh, I see what the scouts who know so much more about what that type of talent could bloom into. I absolutely see the germ of what they were looking at in terms of he's just got a really, really good awareness. He's really, really calm, and he knows. This is something I asked him about. I'm like, not that many 19-year-olds are patient. He's like, I know, but I got to wait my turn. I understand. This is a long haul thing here for me. So he's got a good attitude about it too, but he just seems very, very natural with everything. Everything seems to, he's taking everything in stride for sure.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy. The maturity that he shows. And then I think Wembanyama shows a lot of the same. And obviously they were teammates the last couple of years. So I wonder what it is about the culture of the team that they came from, or whether it's just two special individuals that kind of have this, but it certainly seems like both of them have extremely sharp heads on their shoulders.
Yeah. And for Bilal, that was part of it was he had to wait his turn. He was playing with not the senior team. He was playing the level below up until February last year. This is something that he was I understood I was going to have to take a while. So I got up to the senior team. And then once I got into the senior team, I had to earn my minutes. So he's very used to saying, okay, it's a slow and steady work process, but at the end, I know it yields results. So I think that was a huge, huge thing for him, was just being in that professional environment, and also having to learn how to wait for what he wants too. So yeah, he's very mature. He's a nice kid.
He's just a nice young man.
He's a nice young man.
He is. You are going to see a bunch of other teenagers play basketball this weekend. Give us the quick and dirty version of the preview. You are headed actually from Charlotte, where you covered the game last night, down to cover Maryland and South Carolina, two of the better teams in women's hoops this weekend. What are you expecting to see?
Yeah, I'm so excited. I'm going back to my old beat covering Maryland women's basketball, looking to rebound after a very interesting week in women's basketball. But LSU got absolutely lit up.
Yeah.
They have those games in Notre Dame. I'm excited. I think Caitlin Clark is actually coming to Charlotte tonight. Virginia Tech and Iowa are playing, so it'll be really fun. But this is going to be a tough one for the Terps. They kind of always struggle at South Carolina, especially in Columbia, where it's got to be one of my favorite college arenas to play in. The environment that Dawn Staley has created is really, really fun. So I'm looking forward to that. But the Terps definitely have their work cut out for them, and they've got UConn later this season too. So it's a tough schedule that Brenda Frese puts together for them.
Yeah. In fairness to them, everyone else struggles at South Carolina too. So there's that. They're
but
not
there has,
alone.
like I said, we're seeing some wild upsets this year already. So
That's true.
I'm excited to go and see what the Terps can do.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so you read Ava's coverage of that in the Washington Post, of course, her coverage of the Wizards in the Washington Post, and she's nice enough to join us with some frequency here on the Hoffman Show as well. So with that part said, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, ma'am.
Hey, thank you.
This is The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. So last night, perusing Twitter, which I don't do as much anymore, but I saw this tweet from my buddy Kevin Clark, who used to be at The Ringer, is now doing stuff with ESPN. He's like on Around the Horn and works for Omaha Productions, doing a podcast. Honestly, it could have been a random person. It just happened to be Kevin Clark. But he had this very, very good idea that I really like. And he goes, the way to make the NBA in-season tournament unique is not painted courts. It's to play at different venues in your city. Iconic college field houses, a nice theater, a famous high school, whatever that would make it look interesting. Exchange short-term revenue for buzz. And I freaking love this idea, Anthony. I think it would be incredibly cool. You could almost take basketball back to your roots. And it's something that, frankly, I was listening to Adam Silver on JJ Redick's podcast this week, and their big focus right now in the NBA offices is back to basketball. They have done a lot of stuff in recent years, and there's no better example than the All-Star game, where it's like, we got to put on an entertainment product. And they talk to players, and they're like, well, you guys don't play hard in the game. Like, why? And it's like, well, because you put on a freaking concert beforehand, and we can't warm up. So we spend the first 10 minutes on the court just like trying to get loose. You want us to play a basketball game? Make it a basketball game. And they were like, oh, that's an interesting thought. And so there's a lot of stuff that they're doing that is going to be back to basketball. And I think of let's say the Pacers are doing this, right? You go play at Hinkle Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, like where Butler plays. You play at the Palestra in Philadelphia. You play at some of the most iconic older arenas or alternate spots in the league or in the country, I should say. Like, could you play, I don't know who the team would be to do this, but could you play a game at Allen Fieldhouse in Lawrence, Kansas? Or could the Hornets go play a game at Cameron Indoor? Or alternate, play one of your games at Cameron Indoor and then play your other one at the Dean Dome, because you have 2 home games in the in-season tournament. So you don't want to. I know the NC State fans would be upset, but you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, where in DC would you want the Wizards to play?
And it's just DC. It's not the DMV. It's just.
No, I would say it's the DMV.
Okay.
Because obviously, Cole Fieldhouse got knocked down. That would be a fantastic answer. The former, obviously, Maryland arena. Xfinity Center doesn't have the history. Playing at Xfinity Center does nothing for anyone. So you're not going to Xfinity Center, whereas some of the other answers in other cities might be college arenas.
I would probably say DeMatha, maybe.
I think that's a great one.
They actually dedicated their court to Morgan Wooten, who's very renowned around here. I will also probably say Wise, just because of how big the space is. Last year, Bronny came to town and they packed that place out. Probably the biggest gym in the area, to be honest, or one of them. That's the only reason I would mention Wise. It doesn't really have any historical significance.
I that's the thing though, is let's say my Hornets idea, Charlotte plays at Cameron. Cameron's not that big.
Yeah.
I guess Cameron's probably got 10 to 12 at this point. But if it's a 5,000 seat stadium, it's a 5,000 seat stadium. Ted's we'll have the Wizards play at ESA. No, Ted, that's not what we're talking about. Not at ESA. All right, Anthony, I will admit, as someone who didn't go to high school here, I don't know some of the replies I got on Twitter. So I'm gonna have you educate me on some of these. Our guy Awad said Robinson. You familiar with Robinson?
Robinson, nah, I might be in Virginia. I don't know too.
That's the thing is some people are gonna be screaming at the radios, being like, "How do you not know?" And it's well, if you grew up in Maryland versus Virginia versus DC, there's some of these you're gonna know versus not. Bender Arena.
Bender. Is that AU?
Let's see, Bender Arena. That is American.
Yeah, I mean, I love Bender Arena. That's actually where the WCAC hosts their playoffs. WCAC is one of the best high school conferences, so I would love Bender Arena for sure. A lot of good games out there.
Smith Center. I just think of North Carolina at that. Let's see, Smith Center, DC. I'm not going to be fraudulent here and pretend I know everything. Charles E. Smith. Oh, that's GW. I don't know that has the history that we're really looking for.
Yeah, a lot of people really haven't been down there. Where now? I will say, Georgetown usually have their Kennerly. I can't think of the name of the field house though. It's at Georgetown though.
Yeah. The old Georgetown field house. Yeah.
I think that would be a good
great.
place.
I mean, even as a Syracuse fan, and both of us Syracuse alums, there's plenty of history there. That's for sure. But I also like this. I don't know whether this person was joking or not, but I genuinely think this is the kind of outside the box thing you're looking for. 930 Club. I don't know, could you make a basketball court work in there? I think you probably, I don't know, the Anthem's probably too small. It's not obviously a big spot, but that's the kind of what outside the box. You have all these theaters in DC. Could you turn one of them into a basketball arena? A theater stage is probably not big enough. How could you get a basketball court in one of the spaces in the Kennedy Center. Like, that would be insane.
Yeah, that would be ridiculous, actually.
So like, I don't know what is cool. Wait, Coolidge is that the Georgetown?
Coolidge is a big gym too.
No, it's Coolidge is not Georgetown. Cool, but that's another one that someone
that's a
said.
high school.
Archbishop Carroll. Someone said Gonzaga.
No,
Someone said
definitely not Carroll.
Not Carroll.
Not Gonzaga. Gonzaga's too small, like way too small.
Well, like that's the kind of thing that I think would be cool. But like
the atmosphere in a Gonzaga kind of like space would be crazy just because of how small it is.
Right. And like, how sick would it be if like freaking LeBron's in town playing? I guess, I mean, you probably won't have that because it's the Eastern Conference only. But like, you get the point, right? It's like sick Joel Embiid's playing in a high school gym. Be ridiculous.
But I don't think 1,000 people are fitting in there. That's why you
No,
look at Bender Arena.
It's got to be like 5,000 at least.
Yeah, you look at Bender, you look at Wise, the Phil House at Georgetown.
And then if you want to get really crazy,
the Matha.
How do you build something outdoors, right? How do you go Goodman style or Rucker in New York or,
outside would be crazy.
Or like, what's the league that all the guys, the Drew League in LA?
Oh yeah, the Drew
Like,
League.
you imagine you played at those venues for an actual like NBA in-season tournament game? That'd be sick.
Yeah,
it's such a great idea.
Would be insane for sure. Probably a little bit too cold though. If you have it, in select cities.
Yeah, no, the outdoor would be hard.
Yeah.
That is for sure.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking like some of the other places, like could you play San Antonio? They play at the Alamo Dome.
That would be insane.
All of a sudden he's got 60,000 in there. Like, cause a lot of places would be smaller, some would be bigger.
Yeah.
In Dallas.
Who's playing at the Carrier though?
Ooh.
That's
I don't know if
question.
you'd send one of the New York teams up there.
See, if Melo was still with the Knicks,
yeah,
there you go.
That'd be great. But there's so many iconic places, and I mean, you can go to Carnesecca. You can go to, like at St. John's. Like you can go to all these different places or in and around New York City for sure. But it'd be a cool way. Like, it's funny because actually, like the city edition jerseys and the boundary stone court, like it's meant to tell the story of the city, and it's like this very cool historical thing. And some people hate it because the jerseys don't look anything like Wizards jerseys, but like the idea behind it is very cool. What cooler thing to teach than like the basketball history of a city? It's 2 games every year. I freaking love this idea. If you want to send more ideas around the DMV, Tony just listening in said DC Armory. So there's like another outside the box.
Yep.
Thought like that would be super cool. You can tweet me at Craig Hoffman on those. Really, really freaking cool idea from Kevin Clark that I hope somehow gets on the NBA's roster.
Tony might be my dad, I think.
It says Tony Murray.
Nah,
at B-Ball Therapy.
Yeah.
Not your dad, Tony. I feel like your dad would probably have good ideas.
He's usually on the stream though. That's why
you're about to get a text.
Yeah.
So there's that. All right. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. That was hilarious. Coming up next, we will take a look at our NFL tiers. Has anyone done enough to level up into that prime contender category? And are any teams in trouble of dropping down? We will. Anthony's already shaking his head. Yes. We will discuss next on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. All right, it is time to hit our NFL tiers, where we rank every single team in the NFL. Say like, hey, how you guys doing? Based off of these 4 categories. Category 1, prime contenders. This means we would not be surprised to see this team in the Super Bowl. Then if, and by the way, Anthony, where are you? You didn't copy the tiers into the rundown. Sir, what are we doing? Come on. It's part of we're having some rundown issues recently. We talked about no fines for any of this yet. We're getting into fine territory, sir.
Yes, sir.
Because now I got to find, there we go, prime contenders. And of course my mouse is being a total jerk. I can't find anything. All right, here we go. Prime contenders. And then the next one is puncher's chance. The next one after that is interesting, but not good enough. And then the last layer of this, and now, of course, I think I might have just copied the wrong week over, but that's fine. The last one is no chance, where it's like, yep, well, they just, no, not a thing, not going to make the playoffs, no chance of making the Super Bowl whatsoever. And they're not even that interesting to talk about. So with that, and let me just double check this real quick to make sure I do have the right list here, Anthony. This week might not be as interesting as next week, because next week you get a bunch of teams that I think are in flux that are actually going to play this weekend versus the Niners, the Lions, for instance, 2 teams that we're kind of looking at that are on the bye, or were on the bye. But the teams that we had in prime contenders were the Dolphins, the Niners, the Chiefs, the Eagles, and the Ravens. The Ravens, 1,000%, have cemented themselves as prime contenders. I mean,
are they the best team in the NFL?
They might be. I mean, I think it's hard to look at what the Chiefs are doing and what the Eagles are doing, considering what they came off of last year and bet against them. But Baltimore has taken 2 teams that might actually belong in this tier. Or, sorry, 1 team in the Lions and 1 other team in the Seahawks that, like, might mess around and find themselves in the puncher's chance tier by the end of all of it. And they have absolutely destroyed them, have, like, taken their souls. It is incredibly impressive what Baltimore has done.
Yeah, I think also, like, when you have a successful run game and, you know, the Eagles are, like, prime examples of it.
Yeah.
You'll have a lot of success in the league. And they've had so much success on the ground, like, this season, and then their defense has definitely shown up. And then they also just have so many weapons on the outside. And that's the only thing I really want to see more out of this team is, you know, Lamar put up a little bit more numbers. And he's wanted to do that, but I think he's also all about winning. So if the run game is working and fine, then I think that's what, you know, he'll continue to lean on.
Yeah. So Baltimore, check. Eagles and Chiefs, they've got to bye this week. They, of course, last week got wins. And the Chiefs' win came over the Miami Dolphins, who, yet again, could not beat a premier opponent. So, what do we do with the Dolphins after a 21-14 loss over in Germany? I'll let you go first, because I have thoughts here, and I don't know if I'm going to even let you override me, if we even disagree in the first place.
I think we agree. I think you move the Dolphins down to puncher's chance, to be honest. Again, they haven't gone – I think they're 0-3 in games against teams that are above 500, and those have been the teams that are in prime contenders right now. So if you can't beat them, why are you even, like, sitting with them?
Because you compete with them.
To an extent.
I mean, they were right there. It was 21-14. You have this weird fumble-rooski play. They're driving at the end of the game, and if they can get one more conversion and a touchdown, like, it's a tie game. It's not like they got blown out. Look, the Chiefs' defense is really good. And I do think it's not unreasonable to say what you said. Because when the Dolphins' offense is playing one of the best defenses, then, like, it hasn't gone well. They're not putting up historic numbers, but like that's what happens when you play good defenses. I would say defensively, they also did a pretty good job. Like Mahomes and company jumped out real quick last week to a 14-0 lead. And then they had, obviously, their defense scored the final touchdown, and that's how they win 21-14. But, like, they held the Chiefs to 14 points as a defense, and they did as good of a job on Travis Kelce as anybody. And they've got Jalen back now, and he's not even, like, in the system yet. Yeah. Give it a couple weeks. I actually think Miami's defense doing what it's done. I know the Chiefs' offense hasn't been great this year, hasn't been what it's been, but Mahomes does still lead the league in passing yards. Or is, I think, third in passing yards behind Howell and Tua. But like I think, like, I would not be surprised if the Dolphins face the Chiefs again in January and they beat them. Like, I wouldn't pick them, but it would not surprise me. I
mean, offensively, they're still as deadly as like anyone. I think that's what is going to drive them in their offense. Defense, getting back Jalen Ramsey has helped out, I guess. So I guess that remains to be seen, like how much better the defense can get. But offensively speaking, Tua has to show up in these games where, he's playing some of the better teams in the league, and the offense just hasn't looked that way when they've gone up against some of these other good teams.
So I'm gonna make a master ruling here. Anthony is not responsible for this. The Dolphins get to stay for one more week.
Okay.
The Dolphins this weekend have the
Raiders.
Raiders, or are they on a bye?
Oh, no, they're on a bye. They're on a bye week.
The Raiders are next weekend for them. So, they'll get to stay for 2 more weeks. Unless all of a sudden, well, I guess the Chiefs and Eagles are also on a bye. So, I think they'll probably wind up staying for a couple more weeks. And then if they go thrash the Raiders and thrash a couple other teams, I mean, the Commanders are right around the corner for them.
Yep.
And their defense continues to roll, then they'll stay. If they struggle with the Raiders, and certainly if they struggle with the Commanders, and then we'll probably wind up dropping them down, even if they win those games, but they're not impressive. But if they go out and thrash these other teams, then I'm gonna keep them there for right now. The Niners did not play, so we'll circle back to them. Chiefs, Eagles, 1, Ravens. That's our list of prime contenders.
Yeah.
But the team the Niners have next, I think they're playing this weekend for a 1 prime contender spot. If you're not up on the schedule yet, we'll tell you who it is, and we'll sort out the rest of these teams next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, and always live on the free Odyssey app. Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up in the 6 o'clock hour, Nikki Javala wrote a really interesting piece, kind of Sam Howell / the Commanders offense by the numbers. We'll dive into those numbers. Then we'll also take a look at Thursday Night Football. Is there much to look forward to with Thursday Night Football? It's Bears and Panthers. But we'll take a glance and squint and see if there's anything worth watching tonight. We might circle back to the Wizards, too, about Jordan Poole and kind of his role and his performance through the 6 games of the season. But that's all still to come on our only full 3-hour show of the week, Anthony. And I got to say, it does feel like we're doing a full 3 hours. I feel like we're putting in a real shift today.
But it's also Thursday, and I think just Thursday naturally is just
the anticipation of Friday is coming.
Yeah,
tomorrow's going to feel like a sprint, bro.
It is.
It's a Friday show, which are always jam-packed. I'm going to be live at Capital One Arena at District E. And then we're only on until 6:30 because we got Maryland Hoops. So we are flying tomorrow.
Good gracious.
The rundown's already done.
I was about to say, are we going to have enough time?
Barely. Like, we had to squeeze some stuff in.
Yep.
Like, there's some regular stuff that I don't even know if we're going to get to. So we'll get to that then. As for right now, Anthony, I don't even know if we fired up the NFL music. Normally we do that here, but I'm not there today, so I don't have it at my disposal. But if you would like to, we can run through the rest of this works. Rest of our NFL tiers. So this weekend, the San Francisco 49ers will come off their bye week, where they safely stayed in the prime contenders category to face the Jacksonville Jaguars, who also coming off their bye. I think if they beat the Niners, get to go up into the prime contenders category.
I like it, Craig, because I've been one that really hasn't wanted to give the Jags all the credit that they seemingly deserve. But their record speaks for itself, and I know I've been clamoring for the numbers of Trevor Lawrence be a little bit better, just because he's been hyped up. And I want to, see him go out there and put up some numbers, but their defense has really stuck out to me when I look at the Jacksonville Jaguars. But if they can go out here and knock off these 49ers now we talking, Craig. Now we're talking about the team that came back down 27 against the Chargers last year. We're talking about that team, Craig. That's who we're talking about. Okay.
I kind of want to talk about the Chargers in a second as well.
Okay.
We'll get there. But, this game is in Jacksonville. 1 o'clock kick. If San Francisco goes out there and is like, no, we're back, we're good, then they get to stay. If not, look, the Niners beating them on the road, they haven't won a road game in forever. Not a huge thing, but at that point, the Jags would be, 7-3? I think that's good enough to get into
Purdy?
that top category.
Well, has Purdy won a road game yet?
I don't know. He won his first 11 billion D starts. His first 8 were they all at home? I think they just lost 3 or 4 straight road games.
Okay, that's probably what it was then.
So I think he's had to have won one.
Yeah.
But in our puncher's chance category, the Bills I think stay. The Bengals,
they're trending upward, Craig.
Do they need to go up?
Who do they have this week?
Let's see. I feel like we played this game last week with the Bengals.
They just beat the Bills. Ooh.
They just beat the Bills. They've got the Texans. I'm ready to put the Bengals up, man. Like, if
I
the
think
Bengals
so,
wind up
too.
if the Bengals wind up in the Super Bowl, are you surprised?
No.
Then they belong in prime contenders.
That's probably what That's probably what it was, Craig. We had them too low just because of the bad start that they had. But guess what? They always do this.
It's an evolving thing. Like,
exactly.
It's not that we had them too low. It's like they earned their spot. They got to earn the rise. But here we are. Let's get it. The Bengals join the party in prime contenders. The other teams that we had in puncher's chance, we had the Browns, who beat the tar out of the Cardinals. I don't think you get to move for doing that to the Cardinals. They stay in puncher's chance, and I don't think they're a prime contender.
Yeah, but they gave them a donut, Craig, though. That defense, man.
Dude, Clayton Tune started. Come on.
Oh, yeah, that too. Too.
I think the Bills can stay in puncher's chance because of Josh Allen, and they're going to have to really fall out for me to take them out of that. But then you have the Detroit Lions. So the Detroit Lions this weekend are going to take on the Los Angeles Chargers. If they beat them, and especially if they beat them handily, I put them up.
I want this to be a shootout. The Chargers defense is playing well, though.
Well, that's the thing, is I think the Chargers, like, we've got them currently in interesting but not quite good enough because they started so bad to the season.
Yeah.
I might go ahead and elevate them already in puncher's chance, but if they were to beat the Lions, they for sure wind up in puncher's chance.
Yeah, for sure.
And they made the Jets look bad, bro.
Yeah, the Jets defense, though, stood up a little bit.
But the Jets defense is good.
Yeah. That's probably what it is. But Justin Herbert also did have a great outing.
Query me this. Answer me this, right? Which neighborhood do the Chargers belong in? Lions, Bills, Cowboys, Jags, Browns. Cowboys, the other team we haven't mentioned yet. Or Commanders, Rams, Falcons, etc. Who do the Chargers belong with?
I think they go out here and beat the... For right now... Interesting, but quite not good enough, Craig. That's where they belong. That's right now. That is Thursday, November 9th. Okay. But if they go out here and beat these Lions,
then for sure. Then both of them belong in puncher's chance.
Yes, sir. Both of them.
All right. Cowboys, they lose to the Eagles. That was your chance to go up into prime contenders. We can't take you seriously. Sorry, Dallas. This is what you do every single time. You step out of bounds or wind up a half yard short. You have a puncher's chance because maybe one day you won't, but we can't trust you to actually do the thing. All right.
Quick question, though.
Yeah.
About the Browns, because we glanced over them a little bit. If they go out here and beat the Ravens.
They beat the Ravens, then we have to talk about them going up.
Okay, just curious. All right.
If they go out and shut down Lamar, then it's like, oh, God, this defense is good enough. Or if the offense goes out and has a big day.
Okay.
So that's a fun one to watch this weekend for sure. All right, interesting but not quite good enough. Commanders still belong there, yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
Rams, I think they need to move down to no chance.
Yeah, Carson freaking Wentz. Are you serious?
Yeah, sorry, Sean. You're going down. Yikes.
But what if he goes out and puts up crazy numbers? Then what?
I guess we can move him back up.
Okay.
But I just don't think that, like, over the course of this season, I don't know. They need Stafford to get back.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are the Rams really worse than the Commanders? By a lot?
QB play, yes.
Yeah, no, I guess that's true. All right, so Falcons.
They're on their last leg, Craig.
They are, but I think they still belong in this neighborhood.
Yep.
Barely, but they belong. Seattle, they got their doors blown off by Baltimore, but that doesn't mean anything. It was Baltimore. Pittsburgh.
We got to move them up, Craig.
Who?
Pittsburgh.
Do we?
I mean, the performances have not been all that good, but their record suggests otherwise, Craig. We have to put them up there. We have to. I mean, I guess we can leave them here one more week.
They
have
beat
a big game.
20-16. Like,
yeah. But who would have thought the Steelers to be 5-3 though, Craig? Or are they 6-3?
But there's plenty of other teams that are kind of in that. They're 5-3, right?
Yeah, 5-3.
Yeah.
But
if they go out and wreck the Packers this weekend, we can talk about it.
Which I think will happen.
But, like, legitimately, it's like, okay, if the Steelers were to wind up in the AFC title game, because that's kind of the puncher's chance, right?
They're in the playoffs right now.
But do you think they can actually win a playoff game, nevertheless, too? I don't. There's 7 teams that make the playoffs now.
That's a good point.
Someone's got to.
Yeah.
Tampa.
They can stay.
New Orleans, they can stay. Chargers, we already talked about. The Jets, they got another week if Zach Wilson. I mean, like, record-wise, they belong here. So, you know what? They're kind of like the Commanders.
They're hanging
really
around.
inconsistent. Yeah. Houston belongs here.
Yep.
Heavy underline on interesting, but not quite good enough.
Yeah.
Your boys in Indianapolis, still can't believe you picked against them.
Yeah.
Green Bay rebounded. They get to stay. And Minnesota, I think, gets to stay.
Yep.
And then that leaves Carolina, Denver, Arizona, the Giants, New England, Tennessee, the Vegas, and now the Rams in no chance.
Is Tennessee interesting at all?
No.
Okay, just making sure.
Absolutely not. I mean, well,
I like Levis.
I think they're interesting because of Levis, but I don't think they're good enough. Like they're not quite good enough. They're not good.
Yeah.
Even if they're more interesting now because they have a young rookie quarterback. That is probably the most likely candidate to get themselves out of this for the rest of the season, though, because they had a major change. Vegas could be interesting too, honestly. If all of a sudden the problem was Josh McDaniels and Aiden O'Connell is something, maybe. So I think those are the two teams to watch. Obviously Carolina with Bryce Young, but they're so bad. There's
what about
no
Commander
chance
Carson? Commander Carson. What if he goes out there and puts the world on notice?
Then Sean deserves to go to the Hall of Fame yesterday.
Yes. We'll give them 3 weeks.
Seriously.
We'll be watching those guys.
All right. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And when we get back, we'll take a look at some data that Nikki Javala dug up in the Washington Post about the Commanders' offense and why it's been a little bit more successful these last couple weeks. That's next on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, and we're streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. So let's dive into this article from Nikki Javala at the Washington Post, which I think is pretty interesting. She does a by the numbers article, and she says, hey, they're only one win away from 500. They're about to go face the Seattle team, and here's some numbers that can teach us a little bit more about the matchup. And there's three of them, and we're going to take a look at all three, starting with 722 passing yards, which is the number of passing yards Sam Howell has had over the last couple of weeks, which gets him to 2471 on the year. The only quarterback to ever throw for more yards through the first 9 games of a season in Washington history is Kirk Cousins, 27-16. So still a ways off of that, which shows you how crazy that 2016 season was when Cousins threw for almost 5,000 yards. Howell is, by the way, the only quarterback in NFL history to have a 66% or better completion percentage, a 2,600-yard total, and rush for at least 190 yards in the first 10 games of his career. But I think part of the success of the last couple of weeks is they've gotten Howell in better situations. The play calls have been better, and they've given him, it seems like, more freedom at the line of scrimmage to check into good situations, to make sure his protection is set, to maybe change the play entirely, which that's what it seems like. Eric Bieniemy was asked about it today more specifically.
You know what? Sam is right where he needs to be, just like I say each and every week. Every week, he's growing with the offense. He's doing a heck of a job as a leader. Obviously, it's always been important to him because he takes work home. He studies. He's a humble, hardworking kid that just wants to do it the right way. And so as far as his pre-snap reads and everything, I think he's just doing a great job of just having a complete understanding of what he's looking at, but also feeling more and more confident and just executing his job with great attention to details.
That's Eric Bieniemy speak for yes. Clearly, Sam has earned this, it seems like, from those comments that, hey, he goes home, he does the work, he comes back, he's probably coming in with ideas at this point, because that's the thing, too. And, I've learned this. I mean, you kind of know this, but you hear some more of the specifics in terms of examples when you work with a guy like Logan, who played with a guy like Matt Ryan. Not just a guy like Matt Ryan. He played with Matt Ryan. And there were times where Matt would just do stuff. And he's like, no, we're doing it this way. And it's like, oh, okay, well, cool. Or he would push back against an OC. Or he would change a play or a protection at the line of scrimmage. And, Peyton Manning was notorious for this. Peyton Manning would call, every week, each team goes in with a certain set of audibles and a certain set of checks, and it's like, oh, these plays are in. Well, Peyton Manning would see a look and be like, oh, it's week 9. We haven't practiced this since we installed it in week 3, but this is the right play, so I'm going to do it. And you kind of were expected to be there. And it's like if he called, boom, shakalaka, shake 1-2, then you better remember that boom, shakalaka, shake 1-2 is whatever the hell that was. I just completely made that up, but you get the point. And you haven't heard the words boom, shakalaka, shake 1-2 since week 3, or if you're not a receiver for Peyton Manning in this fake analogy, since maybe 1973. That's not what Sam Howell's doing. Sam Howell is trying to get the things that are taught to him and just trying to master what's put in front of him versus, okay, I got what you're saying, but here's what I think. He's not coming with ideas necessarily at this point in his career, except for maybe he's getting to the point where he is, where he's coming back with more questions, and thus they're able to give him more answers, and thus he has more answers at the line of scrimmage, and I think that's ultimately a good thing. One, he's executing the stuff that they're giving him more, and two, if you're just watching the games, it very much seems like he has a little bit more command at the line of scrimmage and options to check things, get in the right play. Hey, all right, let's maybe not give him a full set of 5 audibles, 10 audibles, whatever, the whole playbook. But if we get this look, I want you to check to that tight end screen. And they do, and they get to it, and it's successful or it's not. The second number that Nikki writes about is 20.9. That's the number of rushing attempts per game that Washington is averaging through week 9. And no quarterback has thrown the ball more than Sam Howell. He's averaging almost 40 attempts per game, 353 through 9. That's 39.2 per game. And no team has averaged fewer rushes per game than Washington, 20.9. And by the way, that's coming because they don't run it on early downs. They're rushing it on first and second down at just 32.5% per True Media, those numbers from Nikki's article in the Washington Post. But here's the thing. And here's why I think the last couple of weeks have been so interesting in terms of a study of offense and a study of how defenses react. The Commanders are running it at the 9th best rate in the league in terms of yards per carry. They're averaging 4.3 a carry. And in short yardage situations, the Commanders have now converted 26 of 33 rushes into first downs. That's the best rate in the league, 78%. That's crazy because earlier in the year, that was a problem. Like, I guess they're 26 of 33. That's 7 times they haven't gotten it. I feel like those were all in like the first 3 weeks of the season. Because I remember we did a 1st and 10, and I was like, they have a short yardage problem. They can't convert. And they were trying all these wacky formations. Remember they did like the near formation or whatever it was? Anthony, you remember that? Like, I used to love running that formation in Madden, but I was like, what are we doing? Why are we running pro set?
You talking about that one?
Whatever it was. And like, no, don't do that. And now with Alex Arma more involved and some of the other decisions they've made, whether that's, good play calling or just better execution, they are 26 of 33 suddenly on the year, and that's one of the best rates in the league. So how is Brian Robinson playing a role in that? Obviously a big one. And where can he get perhaps more involved? Because while I do think like running the football or passing the ball is how you score in the modern NFL, being last in the league in terms of run percentage with a young quarterback doesn't seem like the best formula. So Bieniemy asked today about B-Rob and how he can continue to grow within this offense.
Well, first of all, Brian is a tremendous individual. He's a courageous young man that has a story that basically sets himself apart from many different people. I just love the individual. He's a great kid. He's a hard-working professional. And the thing that I love about him is that he has the right attitude and the right mindset. And those are the type of people that you want in an organization. Those are the type of people that you want to lean on in certain situations, such as, what he did this past week and just running the football.
I mean, again, not a ton personality-wise, but I think it's clear they trust him. And I look at what they did after he fumbled, and they went right back to him. And I think that says something about Bieniemy, who has the experience of being a running back in the NFL and what he knows mentally it means to have that trust. But also, like, it means they genuinely trust him. They look at that fumble and be like, you know what? That was a good play by the defender. Next time to be more careful that guys can come from behind and punch the ball out, and you better be prepared for it. So I love that from EB, and I think that it would be smart for them to check out the run game a little bit more, and especially this weekend. And I don't know. It always feels like they should run it a little bit more. It feels like some of these teams are vulnerable, but at the same time, you have to be who you are, and this is not a team that likes to run it a lot. The last stat from Nikki is third down conversion rate, and this one we're actually going to take a break and come back and talk about a little bit more at length. Because it is, while we're focused mostly on the offense, the Seahawks defense, or the Seahawks offense, so the Commanders defense, also very interesting in the third down category. So we will do both of those next as we get you ready for Seahawks and Commanders this weekend and so much more here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live as well on the free Odyssey app. always live as well on the free Odyssey app. I'm sad, Anthony. You were really going there for a second, and I didn't have you up on the screen yet. So, thank you for continuing to dance.
Everybody missed the original dance moves because I was going crazy.
Yeah, there was a lot happening.
Okay.
And I was like, I got to get Anthony on the screen. Oh, he's slowing down. Oh.
I ran out of steam, guys.
Yeah, we got to get your conditioning up. All the shows can't be 2.5 hours, Ant.
Nope,
Some days
can't.
you got to do the full 3.
I know.
You got to do what we're contracted for.
Yeah.
Here in the middle of winter when it's been dark for 2 hours.
Yeah. Oh, the rain is gone?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
I did poke my head out earlier. And I was like, nope, it's raining.
It's gone.
Dang. As Anthony Haney would say. That's one of my favorite Anthony-isms. Dang.
That's funny.
We got that. We got more so. What else? Is there anything I say or like anything I do with regularity that you talk to your friends? I can't believe this idiot did this again today.
Nah.
Are you just saying that, or is there? Now I'm gonna get like tweets. We're gonna get YouTube comments. We're gonna get all kinds of stuff.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think right now.
I do sometimes go on phrases. I don't know. I feel like I repeat myself all the time because I know
there are some words you use that are funny to me. I don't know if they're FCC friendly though. Not like curse words. It's more so. I don't know how to explain it, to be honest.
That is becoming very clear very quickly. You're gonna have to tell me that one, whatever words you're thinking about in the break, and if it's actually fine for the FCC, I will share it in the next segment.
Okay.
We'll see. I often feel like I use similar phrasing to explain things because I'm genuinely explaining it, but then I do, maybe I'll do a radio hit with Michael in Richmond, and then I'll do Take Command, and then I'll do this show, and I feel like I explain it. And obviously I appreciate everyone who listens to me in any amount of time, but I know that people aren't listening to everything. We're doing these shows. The Venn diagrams have some crossover. It's mostly different audiences. And so sometimes I'm like, that's exactly how I said this last time. But I'm saying it that way because it's the best way to say it. But there's also some phrases that I use a lot. Last year we talked about the canary in the coal mine a lot. That was a Take Command thing where Curtis Samuel was our canary in the coal mine every week. Whereas if he's getting the ball at the right amount, it's a sign that the offense is healthy. It's like the canary in the coal mine. It's your indicator. And so sometimes there's stuff like that where I just go on whims because I'm talking about a certain something, and I'm on that whim for a while.
Yeah.
Then they typically shift. I don't think I have any terrible crutches.
I don't think you do. That's why I'm over here struggling.
When you talk as much as I do, and you have to go back and listen to yourself with some regularity, yeah, I think eventually you work your way out of them. More so.
I'm gonna start keeping tabs on how many times you say more so now too.
That was 100% a joke as a shot at you, just to be abundantly clear.
I know, more so.
All right. More so, Nikki Javala. It doesn't even make sense sometimes. That's the thing. When you say it, when people use crutches and points that don't make sense, where you're like, that was a non sequitur that didn't make any sense. Why did you say that word? That word doesn't go there.
I don't know. I just needed a filler word.
Here's what I say all the time. And the point is, which is an old John Mulaney stand-up bit that another podcast host I listen to also uses a lot. Anyway, the point is, Nikki Javala wrote in the Washington Post 3 stats that she thinks are important to look at ahead of the Commanders game with the Seahawks this weekend. We already talked about the passing yards for Sam Howell and the rush attempts. Heard from Eric Bieniemy on both of those things as well. Bieniemy didn't talk about third downs today, did he? By any chance?
No.
I didn't think so. I didn't think I saw that in transcript, but sometimes those transcripts all blend together. But he's facing a Seattle defense that is really bad on third down. The Seahawks are coming off one of their worst performances, obviously, ever against the Ravens on both sides of the ball. They lost, I think it was 37-3, wound up being the final score. But the Seahawks offense only converted 1 of 12 attempts on third down. And then the Seahawks are allowing 45.3%. That's third worst in the league on defense. So the offensive side of the ball we'll circle back to in a second, because I think that stat is a little bit misleading in terms of the danger of this Seahawks offense. But defensively, knowing they give up almost half their third downs, like, I would be curious to study, okay, are they really bad giving up time or down and distance stuff? Like, are they bad on early downs? And I think the answer is probably on some level, yes. And that's going to require, like, if you want to tie all these stats together, I think Bieniemy's got to run it a little bit more on first and second down. Again, they're worst in the league. Or I don't want to say worst. They're least often in the league at 32.5% running the ball frequency-wise on first and second down. But the Seahawks will give up some yards in those situations, which leads to third and manageable, which leads to a high third down conversion percentage. The best way to convert third down is never get there. The second best way to convert third down is to have it be third and very short. And so I think for the Commanders, when you talk about play selection this weekend, like, they're going to have to be very diligent. They're going to have to execute, because the Seahawks have a ton of team speed. And that's the thing that scares me this weekend versus the last couple of weeks, and specifically last week against New England. Like, New England schematically presents a lot of challenges, but they don't have really good personnel. They don't have guys that are flying around on the football. And, like, the guys they do have, like that, Matthew Judon, Christian Gonzalez, like, they were out last weekend. Seattle's got, like, Bobby Wagner, who still flies around a good bit. They've got, like, Devin Bush is one of their backup linebackers. Jordan Brooks is the guy that starts ahead of him. Like, those guys can run. Tariq Woolen, fast as hell. He's a 4.3 guy. The other corner is obviously Devin Witherspoon, fast as hell. Jamal Adams at safety is not what he used to be, but, like, he's still running around pretty good. Diggs runs really well. Like, they just have athletes all over the field, which means when you're playing zone coverage, like they play a lot of, those windows are small and there's not a lot of room for yards after catch because guys fly to the football. But if you can be pointed and make them, like, tackle and maybe you slip one, that's where your yards after catch are gonna happen. But it also means that, can you get the quick stuff underneath before, defenders are flying around everywhere, when they're kind of sitting more back on their heels? Take your 5 yards, take your 6 yards, take your 7 yards, and then be in third and manageable, and then convert. And then the challenge with that, Ant, is the same challenge that we talk about a lot with the bend but don't break strategy for the Commanders defense, which is, can you then move the football down the field without committing a penalty or taking a sack that's going to derail your offense? And that, I don't know. That's the challenge for them, I think, this weekend.
Yeah, and I feel as though that's sort of kind of like what we've seen the last couple of weeks, in terms of trying to, stay ahead of the chains and, not necessarily getting all of those, 5-yard false start penalties, and also just having success on, the early downs. And I do agree with you. I think we do need to run the ball a little bit more on first downs. Yes, I think it's, like, more popular to, pass, run, pass, sort of kind of to sustain drives. But
that's another one for you, sort of, kind of.
I just feel as though we can just, especially against the Seahawks, I think we'll have a little bit more success on the ground as opposed to, like, some other teams that we've faced. But I definitely think we need to run the ball a little bit more. And so, I like Arma in there.
Yeah, the penalty. Yeah, I like that strategy for sure. I mean, I think the penalty stuff, though, is especially potent this weekend, especially relevant this weekend. You're playing in the loudest stadium in the league. Like, you're probably going to have a false start or two with a rookie, or not a rookie, but a young quarterback who's never played in the pros in this kind of atmosphere. Like, sure, he's played at Clemson before when he was at North Carolina, and it's louder than hell in that place. Like, I've been to Death Valley. It is super duper loud, 80,000 in there. It is hard to hear. But colleges are used to hand signals. Like, they don't have speakers in the helmet. Sam's never had to, like, jam his head or his hands on his helmet and try to hear the play and then regurgitate it to a huddle and then make a line check. Like, that's not how it works in college. In college, everybody looks at the sideline and they have signals, and then they're like, why is that guy from Michigan here trying to steal them? And then everyone knows the play. And so it's a different situation in the NFL with how everything is communicated, and there's a really good chance that they're trying to communicate something. They don't get it. Boom, delay a game. They're trying to communicate it, snap count, something. They mess it up, false start. Someone misses a snap count. They're laid off the ball. They then have to grab and hold to prevent a sack. Like, those are the kinds of things that happen in these kinds of environments. And so I think that is especially prudent this weekend. And then you got to obviously hit your shot plays, which brings me to quickly the other side of this. Seattle's one of the worst teams in the league converting on third downs, but you cannot just be happy getting off the field all the time. I mean, obviously it's all the time, of course. But, hey, we got off the field 2 drives in a row. Cool. They will kill you on the next drive with a explosive play. Like, that is how that offense, they have playmakers freaking everywhere. We'll talk about it more tomorrow, but, dude, Smith and Jigba, Lockett, Metcalf, Noah Fant at tight end. Their running backs can all score. Like, they got dudes on that offense. And so, yes, down in, down out, are they the smoothest operation? No. But on any given play, are they a threat to score? Yeah, which makes that third down percentage far less relevant than most other teams in the league who are not quite as big play prone. And by the way, the Commanders have had problems giving up explosive plays. When we get back here on the Hoffman Show, a little peek at Thursday Night Football, and we'll also revisit something we talked about at 5 o'clock with Ava Wallace. What do we make of Jordan Poole not playing so well to start this season for the Wizards? We'll discuss next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, and always live on the free Odyssey app. Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up tomorrow, Stacey Joe Roast from 710 ESPN in Seattle. We have some other stuff tomorrow, Anthony. Like the rundown's full. I just don't remember what it is. Let me see. I got it right here. We got our What's at Stake, Keys to the Game. Probably a little Take Command. Stacey Joe Roast. Dave Johnson, because tomorrow's Wizards game day. We'll be live at Capital One Arena, so make sure you come hang out with us there. Capital One Arena, District E, actually, so you don't even have to go inside of Capital One Arena. The food, by the way, is really good. So come grab a bite before you head over to the game. Yeah, Anthony, I don't know what's going on with your camera there. You're out of focus. I need you to focus, bro. Let's see. I'm going to see what Anthony's doing here. Whoa. Oh, God, we're on a roller coaster ride. Whoa, this feels like we're in like a scary movie situation. Just moved it all around. There you go. There it goes. All right, we're all focused now. Speaking of focused, focus, Craig. We'll go around the NFL, make our picks. We'll have our pick six. Then we'll do real things, and we'll get out of there because we're off at 6:30 tomorrow with Maryland Hoops taking the air at 6:30. I do believe, actually, you know what? Before I speak out of turn, let me double check, but I'm pretty sure the Wizards are on 106.7 tomorrow. So you can check them out there. Nope. It's the Capitals play tomorrow. So I guess they're on 99.1, the Wizards tomorrow. So we'll make sure that we let you know throughout the show where you can find Dave and Glenn and with everything getting shifted around a little bit. But it should be 99.1 tomorrow then for the Wizards because Maryland is taking on Davidson. And yeah, it is Bloomberg 99.1. Hornets and Wizards. Okay, now that we've got all of that squared away, speaking of the Wizards, so Anthony, Jordan Poole last night, just a pretty freaking bad game. Like, I don't know how else to say it. He scores just 11 points. He's 3 of 12 shooting. He's got a couple of turnovers. And unfortunately, like, this has kind of been his season. Maybe not all that bad, but he plays just 20 minutes last night. And at the end of the day, like Wes Unseld decides by the time the fourth quarter comes around that there's better options. And DeLon Wright was having a great game. And so that's like good on Wes for being like, yeah, we're gonna go with the hot hand. But at the end of the day, like Jordan Poole is too talented to do this with the regularity that he is. I mean, you go back to the preseason, he had 1 2 for 13 game. He had 1 for 15 game. Yikes. And then he's 3 for 12 last night with the turnover. And he just like gets the ball straight taken out of his hands. 1 assist. Like this just isn't what, I mean, it's certainly not what they thought it would be. But teams are wrong for a variety of reasons all the time. I still don't think it was a bad move. Chris Paul, like, I don't know how much better player you're going to get than a guy like Jordan Poole, who's young, and teams will convince themselves, hopefully, that he can be like a great sixth man for them and help contribute in like he did to the Warriors title in 2022. But at the end of the day, man, like, I'm stunned that he hasn't taken the freedom that he has to find a way to play differently because the numbers look way too similar. And not just in terms of the percentages, but in terms of attempts and everything as they did against when he was in Golden State. Like, you're the focal point of an offense now. How are you averaging the same exact things?
Yeah, and it's more so what I would have wanted to see out of him, just a better brand of basketball. It seems as though, like, he's still playing, the same style that he was in Golden State to an extent where he's coming off the bench. Well, he's starting here, but where he was coming off the bench and he needed to, ignite or be that the focal point of the second unit. And it's more so here, like he's the focal point, but we should be, getting better shots. We should be getting everybody involved in things of that nature. And he has the ball a lot, majority of the time here. So I just want to see a better brand of basketball, better shots that he's taking. A lot of the shots he's taken have been like super questionable. Right. And then he's also, turning it over too, though. So you can't be taking bad shots and turning it over. Like, that is not a good recipe for success.
No, for sure. And like, that's the I think that's the thing that's frustrating is like, I realize that it's a little weird to complain about a guy for being exactly who he's been his whole career. Yeah. And it's like, what did you expect? Like, this is Jordan Poole. And it's like, I know, but he's like older now and he has the responsibility of a team. And Ava, when she was on with us earlier, said like, everything that I've heard from inside the Wizards is they really like him. They trust him. They think he'll figure it out. I know from talking to people before the season, I haven't had any conversations recently, but like, hopefully I'm going to have some on Friday when I get out there and run into some folks on purpose. But like you look at who he is as like a worker, who he is behind the scenes, how he plays in practice. And like everything you hear is like, he's just a great kid who like works really hard. And I don't really understand how that personality, how that work ethic, how that care factor, if like you care that much, how are you then this player? Like, how do you play like you don't care? And I know that he does care. So I'm not, to be very, very clear to Jordan and to anybody at the Wizards who may be listening to this, and to fans as well who might take this and run, like, I'm not saying Jordan Poole doesn't care. I'm saying his style of play is very carefree and to a point careless. And that's like a very important distinction, right? Steph Curry plays carefree. I think at times Jordan Poole seems to play careless. And finding, at least on the carefree side of the line, if not hey, man, I want you to play like you care. Like, I want people to walk out of the arena being like, that dude tries so hard, which would involve a different level of defensive intensity, which would involve, curbing some of the more adventurous shots in favor of perhaps some more traditional ones. I think that would be good for him at this point in his career. And frankly, if I was Wes, and this is a challenge, like when you're dealing with a new guy, like he's making a bunch of money, like he might not see himself as someone who's here for the long term. These relationships are tricky, but I'll be like, look, man, I want you to take 5 games to play within a box. I'm not going to try to take away your freedom. Like long term, we're going to let it fly. And you know what? If we're in a late game situation and you're hot or you're rolling, I'll give you a magic hand signal. I'll be like, hey, if I give you a monocle, then you have the reins are off. But for right now, I need you to scale it back. I want you to think a little bit more out there. We're trying to develop you as a player, and this is going to help you. And those are tough conversations. And some coaches, and maybe they are doing that. And Jordan doesn't listen. I don't have any idea. I haven't talked to anyone over there since the season started. But I am genuinely stunned that Jordan Poole, Washington Wizard, looks so similar to Jordan Poole, Golden State Warrior, because of what I heard about kind of his makeup and what I thought he was capable of doing with his skill coming over here and how he seemed to embrace the bigger role and wanted it and was so ready to lead a team. And by the way, one last thing, what guys non-Draymond Green category said about him in Golden State, where like the Andre Iguodala's signed off on him. And if Dre signs off on you, then that's good enough for me.
Yeah. I think also for Wes, like, is this a situation, though, where I guess like yesterday you can take that for an example where, you sit Poole and you sort of send a message that way? Or is it more so you actually are, pulling him to the side and having these tough conversations? Because, again, this isn't the first time, like, he set the fourth quarter. He set the fourth quarter against the Hawks, I'm pretty sure.
He did.
The Heat, maybe, I'm not sure. But it's been a couple of games where, he set in the fourth quarter, and I'm not sure what Unsil's messaging is to him, but I think that is a tough position for Wes to be in the first place because of the green light that he gave him when we end up, trading for him and things of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the fourth quarter Wizards stats now. You look at, like, player efficiency stuff, like the NBA uses a player impact estimate is their, like, PERs, like what ESPN uses and all these different things. I mean, fourth quarter for the Wizards this year, the worst player is actually Tyus Jones, who's only played in 2 games worth of fourth quarters,
wow,
which is crazy. And Jordan is the second worst, minus 3.3. So, like, that's brutal compared to like Kyle Kuzma, who's 23.3 in the fourth quarter. Like, fourth quarters played, Danielo's only played in 2, Tyus has played in 2, and then Poole's only played in 3. Like, Landry Shamit's played in 3 fourth quarters this year, and he's missed a couple of games.
Probably because of all these blowouts.
Oh, that's part of it for sure, is like, oh, well, we're not going back to the starters now. But, I mean, I think the other thing that's interesting, too, is, like, the usage percentage stuff. I'm going to have to redo this real quick. But, like, it's not like he's not involved, because he is 27.8 usage percentage. So, like, when he's in the game, the ball's running through Jordan Poole. The ball, that means on 27.8% of possessions, it's ending with either a Jordan Poole shot or a Jordan Poole assist, or a Jordan Poole turnover. But the efficiency in that is brutal. I mean, his player impact rating on the year is 6.9. 6.9. Kuz is 14.6.
I mean, that's a lot better than 6.
Yeah. Yeah. So they got to figure it out. And I also wonder, like, you know, we can dive into this data. I'm going to have to play around with it. I'm trying to give it like 10 games before I really start diving into it. But, like, also, is it he and like, how does Jordan play when he's not with Tyus? How does he play with DeLon? How does he play with Corey? Because I think there's other factors here that can probably help him, and it's on Wes and the staff to find what those things are. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Of course, you're home for Wizards basketball. We are at Capital One Arena tomorrow at District D starting at 4 o'clock. Come hang out, District D block party. I believe last time it started at 5:30, so I presume doors will open same time tomorrow. It's a Football Friday tomorrow as well. Looking forward to that. When we get back, we'll wrap up the show with real things real people said into real microphones. Show, Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Talking Terps coming up next. Anthony, earlier in the show, / all show long, I've kind of been calling you out on some of your vocal crutches, your vocal tics. More so, what was the other one?
Sort of, kind of like, or something like that.
Yeah, sort of, kind of. You'll make like a really good point, and you'll soften it with sort of, kind of. Like, Jordan Poole should sort of, kind of play better basketball. You're like, he should just play better basketball.
Yeah, he should.
Our guy C-Dub tweeted in, C-Dub 1906, Curtis says, your thing is while you're thinking or reading. That is 100% correct. And often, I'm glad he said thinking or reading, because often I am scrolling, trying to find something. I'm like, he's got 28 points or whatever. That's Curtis, regular listener to the show, pays attention.
Yep.
Excellent job on that. You can tweet me more of the things I should improve on during the show. Wow, I just opened up a can, didn't I? At Craig Hoffman, I'll probably ignore most of them. But if they're good, I'll be cognizant. But I'll probably ignore most of them. People give me feedback on Take Command all the time. They tell me I should talk less. You know who tells me I should talk more? Logan. So I'm going to listen to Logan. Anyway, speaking of, coming up on the show tomorrow, already told you, we got preview from Seattle. Stacey Joe Ross, my friend from 710 ESPN. She's actually kind of the Seattle version of me. She used to be a beat reporter. Still does actually some writing for SeattleSports.com, but she hosts a daily show up on 710, great station in Seattle. We've also got Dave Johnson tomorrow on a Wizards game day, and we will be live at District E Capital One Arena, so come hang out with us. Anything else that we need to get to, Anthony? Housekeeping-wise.
I think that's everything, to be honest.
Okay. Thanks for being honest. It's time for real things real people said into real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
You know what's funny about this timestamp, Anthony? 5-0, 5-0, 5-0. Somewhere on the internet, there is a great story, or there's someone impersonating Avery Johnson yelling at David Robinson, because that's what he used to do. Be like, 5-0, 5-0. I also realize 5-0 means other things, but
yes, it does.
That was Avery Johnson used to always yell that at David Robinson, big number 50, back in their Spurs days. 5-0. His distinctive Avery Johnson voice. Anywho, real things. We got a couple of good ones. I'm already forgetting the one that you just sent me because I'm so excited for the Myles Garrett one. What was the other one you sent me, though, Anthony? Because you're driving today.
I sent you Iron Eagle.
Ian from last night. I forgot about this one, too. I was even talking about the other one. So next week, I actually want to do something. We would do this. I would have tried to do this today, Anthony, but Ian calls Thursday Night Football for Westwood One. But I would like to have Ian on the show so that we can formally induct him into the Real Things Hall of Fame.
Okay.
Because I think he has earned that with calls like this.
This rejection by Paul George. Harden, that's coming my way. I got it. Unbelievable. I could see it from the beginning. Ed, you take over, my friend. That might have been my greatest call in NBA history. I knew it from the second it left his hand. I also have tea all over my lap.
I get coffee all over my...
Yeah, James Harden just said, hey, welcome back. Let's get the bucket from Lonnie.
And that is how, and then just right back to the action. Let's get the bucket from Lonnie Walker. That is Ian Eagle calling a ball from James Harden getting thrown out of bounds into his lap through his and Sarah Kustak's drinks.
Yeah.
Incredible job. I mean, he should have. That's a tough spot, by the way, as an announcer. Because I want us to be like, Ian, we got to show a little more athleticism. We got to figure out a way to catch that ball, because he kind of gives it like the I don't want a ball thrown at me stiff arm, but that ball's coming in, and he's got monitors in front of him. He's got like probably laptops. You just don't know where the ball is going to land on that. And so and you don't know because there's a guy jumping in front. Like, is it going to get deflected? Like, it's a tough gig. And you know what he did? He called the action perfectly.
He did. I would have definitely fumbled and been like, oh. I would have. I'm over dramatic, so I think that would have came out on air, and I think everybody would have enjoyed it though.
We've had other submissions in this category before. We had a guy, minor league baseball announcer, who caught a foul ball. We've had wasn't there a guy? I think it was a major league announcer who got hit in the face and called it that just ow.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, it was John Sterling.
It was a foul ball, I think.
It was John Sterling with the Yankees.
Yep.
And it was like, that one's fouled back. Ow.
I think he said he thought it was a bird at first. I don't know. He did. He definitely got hit though.
He sure
definitely got hit.
It's not fun when a baseball goes up near you. You realize they swing hard.
Yeah.
Ian Eagle joins Kevin Harlan. We also have Kevin doesn't know this. We need to get Kevin on the show and tell him that he's also a Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if he calls a Commanders game, we will 100% make that happen. But Real Things Hall of Famer, we're ready for induction. Ian Eagle. He had the Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift call earlier this year.
Yep.
Was on the very front of that train. Hit it at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
He's had a bunch of other good ones over the years. He's also said hysterically funny things on our show when he's been on as a guest.
Yeah.
So my friend, my pal, my mentor, Ian Eagle, congratulations. You're in the Real Things Hall of Fame. We'll make that formal induction ceremony next week. Myles Garrett caught up with Kyler Murray before the Cardinals and Browns game over the weekend. He just didn't realize when he started that he was catching up with Kyler Murray.
Only if Dalvin does it. Where's Dalvin at? Oh, baby, I'm sorry. How you doing? Good to see you, How you doing? Nice game, you think? Nice game, you think? Oh, yeah, sorry. Hey, could have put you in the graveyard, so, hey, I'm glad you waited to the next one. I was coming out firing today.
That was funny, because he literally did not realize it was Kyler Murray.
Nah,
He's
he
like,
did.
oh, that's who that is. The little guy in the beanie who I don't have to chase around today. I would have put you in the grave. That's funny. All right, that's the show for today. Tomorrow, we only go till 6:30, so make sure you're not late. Get on up. Get with us on the radio, online, on the Odyssey app, or in person at Capital One Arena. We'll see you then and there. Talking Terps is next on the Team 980.